What's up guys, iDusk here, and I have another tips and tricks video for you all today. Yes, I'm still working on the Nasher tips and tricks video. That one's coming up after this one, but today I'm going to give you guys some tips and tricks to help you improve in Team Deathmatch. I got some Team Deathmatch gameplay going on from the crossplay event. The other team had 2 PC players, I believe. I'm not too sure if I recall correctly, but I think they definitely had at least one. And it was funny because the game before this one, they kept bitching at each other over the loss, and they kept calling each other scrubs and shit. And it's funny because this game, I got stuck on a team full of bots, and they still lost. And then, of course, they cried about my bots being better than their bots. I mean, I hate crybabies so much. People who just can't play the game without bitching about when they lose. But whatever, that's enough of that. Let's get into the tips and tricks. So, my first tip is to make sure you are controlling the power weapons, both at the start of the round and throughout the round. Typically, when the round starts, everybody moves towards the power weapons at the start, which is exactly why they're even there in the first place. They keep the game moving, and they give players a reason to not sit and spawn and to actually move around the map in a non-objective game type. So you really want to focus on the power weapons at the start of the round and know how to fight for those power weapons on each map. In this gameplay, you're going to see me getting the majority of my kills with power weapons, as I was stuck on a team full of bots against 4 human players, so my power weapons was my only chance of winning pretty much. Gears of War 4 uses after use weapon settings, which means that the main power weapons such as boom shot, sniper, torque bow, drop shot, all that stuff, they all respawn exactly 30 seconds after they have been used up. That means from the moment that the last round is fired, or if you die with the power weapon and the weapon wasn't currently equipped. If you die with the power weapon equipped, it will remain on the map for 30 seconds before disappearing. So, when you obtain the power weapon, you are essentially in control of when it will respawn, so you want to make sure you use that to your advantage. If you have the sniper, for example, on the map Gridlock, but the enemy team is all set up in the sniper respawn, then you don't want to fire out that last round, otherwise it's going to respawn in 30 seconds right next to the enemy team, since they're all set up for it. On the flip side, if the enemy team has the power weapons, you want to pay close attention to how many rounds they've been used. Now this is easier with the weapons like the boom shot or the drop shot, because they only have 2 or 3 shots and they make these big ass explosions, so it's really easy to see when they're fired off. And of course the sniper rifle, torque bow, are a little bit harder since they have more shots and they're a little bit more discreet when they're fired. But once you know if any player is out of ammo, you should head back to the power weapon spawn point and try to grab the next one. The secondary power weapons, such as the Retro Lancer, Overkill, Markska, Bolt Hawk, they all spawn about every minute or so, regardless of if they've been used. So, if you're using one of those weapons, and even if you haven't died yet, you still have the Retro Lancer, for example, in about a minute, you can go ahead and go back to the Retro spawn and restock your ammo. The next tip, which is probably the second most important thing, is to establish map control. Usually power weapons are placed on the map in areas where you're more vulnerable, so once you have the power weapons, or if you lost the fight for power weapons and you have to reset, the next step is to set up control of key areas on the map. A good example again is Gridlock, where once you have the sniper rifle, one of the best spots to use it is on the balconies by the spawns. Every map has a key point where you want to familiarize yourself with, and as I do more of these tips and tricks videos, I'll be making videos on maps in general and going into more detail of where the good control points are, where the respawns are, etc. But if you play the game for a bit, you'll start to get a feel of where the best spots on each map are. It's also important to make sure you're adjusting your position depending on what the enemy team is doing. If you're playing on Foundation, for example, and you have a really good setup on the drop shot side of the map, but the enemy team just respawn and they're all starting to move towards torque bow side, then you have to make sure you're moving as well. Map control doesn't mean sitting in one spot with the Lancer the entire game. Map control means constantly moving and maintaining the best position on the map at any given time. Tip number 3 is to understand the spawn line. There are 2 respawn points in Team Deathmatch, and each spawn point has an invisible line. If you cross this line and then you kill an enemy player, you're going to trigger the spawns to flip, which depending on the current situation could be a good or a bad thing. But knowing where this line is on each map is super important, so you can avoid triggering a spawn flip if you don't want one, or you can force a spawn flip if you do want one. Again, I plan to do more tips and tricks videos for specific maps, so I'll have guides on each map of where this invisible line is, but typically you just don't want to overextend into the enemy's spawn. If you're in their spawn and they still have spawn protection, chances are you're in too far. Tip number 4 is recognizing when you need to break a spawn trap. Spawn trapping is a very frequent thing in Team Deathmatch, and you are, like it or not, you're going to be on the giving and receiving end of it. The important thing is to recognize when you are in a spawn trap and acting quickly to break the trap as fast as possible before the enemy team racks up too many points. It's really easy to be in a spawn trap, charge the enemy team, maybe get 1 kill before getting down by 4 Lancers, and then you repeat the process a couple times and oh shit, look, the round's over, we lost. So when you realize that you're in a spawn trap, there's a few things you can do, but the ultimate goal is to not really focus on getting kills, but breaking the spawn trap. When you're respawning, you want to pay close attention to the enemy team's setup and try to find a weak point. This could be an area where there are no enemy players, or maybe there's 4 players on one side and only 1 player on the other side. So typically you want to make a very aggressive push on that weak point. And once you manage to get out of spawn, if you do manage to get out of spawn, you don't get gunned down, you don't necessarily have to fight anybody. Just one player getting out of the spawn can easily break a spawn trap, because if you break out of spawn by yourself and the whole enemy team is focused on maintaining their spawn trap, you can now pick up power weapons on the map that have respawned, or you can just start setting up and putting shots into the enemy team's back, and then that would divert their attention from your teammates until they can push out of spawn as well. Or if you see an enemy player who died on the kill feed, you can rush to their side of the map and try to kill them in their spawn, which would trigger a respawn flip, and that would also get your teammates out of the spawn trap. Again, the key thing to remember is make sure you are breaking the spawn trap. You don't really want to focus on kills. When you're in a spawn trap, that's pretty much game over if the enemy team can maintain it. So don't worry about that 1 or 2 petty kills. Just focus on breaking that spawn trap, because that's the only way you're going to get back into the round. Tip number 5 is the focus on staying alive. Many players tend to only focus on how many kills they have, but they don't think too much about their deaths. But you only have 15 lives, and that is shared amongst your entire team, so really your lives are only as strong as the team's weakest player. You might be capable of dropping 20 kills in a round, but if MLG 420 Quickscoper comes around and dies 15 times, now you don't have any lives left, so make sure you're trying to prioritize staying alive. You don't have to take every single battle you find yourself in. If you're trying to spawn trap the enemy team and then 2 players rush you, there's no harm in backing off towards your nearest teammate and saving that life that you probably would have lost if you try to be a hero and take that 2v1. Now sometimes the risk is worth the reward. For example, let's say you're trying to secure a power weapon and 2 people rush you. Now it might be worth going for that 2v1 because the risk versus reward works a lot more in your favor. Your risk in this scenario is you might lose 1 life, but the reward is taking 2 lives from the enemy team, and you get the power weapon, which could potentially take even more lives. So before you take any fight, you should really weigh out the risk versus reward and ask yourself, is this a battle that's worth fighting? Usually it will be. Like 9 out of 10 times it's going to be, okay, that's a battle worth fighting, or it's going to be a fair 1v1 that you feel you can take. But it's important to recognize when it's not a good fight, so you can back off and stay alive and preserve those lives for when it is a good chance to go for a 2v1 or something. And finally, my last tip is to how to handle being the last player standing. Now this is a super tough spot to be in, but it's also one of the most exciting parts of Team Deathmatch. When you're the last player standing, you have no lives left, the other team outnumbers you, maybe they ran out of lives but they have a couple players alive, or maybe they have some lives left in their pool. The biggest mistake I see players make in this scenario is they hide. They hide in spawn, or they find a little corner of the map to hide, normally with their Lancer or their Nashorau, and they wait for somebody to cross their path. Now this ends up failing like 99.9999 times infinity % of the time, because what ends up happening is the entire enemy team crosses their path, holding every power weapon on the map, and you stand absolutely 0 chance of winning that battle. Really, you have nothing left to lose at this point, so try to be a hero. This is the time to really try to come in clutch and save the team. Stay mobile, keep moving. If there's power weapons that are respawning, try to get those weapons. You also want to focus on separating the enemy team as much as possible. A good thing to remember is you stand a much better chance winning 5 1v1 battles in a row than you do winning a 5v1 battle. If you ever see a 1v1 and you're in that situation where you're outnumbered and you're the last man standing, take that 1v1 without hesitation. If you're being chased by the whole enemy team and then you see 2 players break off to go around a corner, or they flank off to go grab power weapon, turn around and fight the rest of the team while they have broken up. Even if you have to take a 2v1 or maybe the odd 3v1, you still stand a much better chance this way than you do hiding in spawn, and just really hiding in spawn just delays the inevitable. Plus, when you do go clutch and you win against all odds, it is the best fucking feeling in the world. You're going to get praise from your teammates in your inbox. You're going to be jumping up and down while you execute that last enemy player and rub it in their face that you straight up outplayed their entire team. That is the feeling that Gears of War is all about, and if you just play smart, it is very much possible to come on top in those situations. Now that sounds a lot better than hiding in spawn, maybe getting off 1 petty chainsaw kill before you get downed by the entire enemy team and they're all surrounding you, teabagging you, executing you, and whatever. So guys, there you have it, just a few tips and tricks to help you climb the ranks in Team Deathmatch. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope this video could help you improve your gameplay. Feel free to share any tips that you have that I didn't go over in the comments below. Also, let me know which tips and tricks video you would like to see in the future. My next one is going to be the Nasher tips and tricks video that has already been requested, but the next one after that's still up in the air. I don't know which one I'm going to do next, so let me know if there's a specific tips and tricks video you'd like to see. Just drop it in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like and subscribe to my channel for more Gears of War discussions, tips and tricks, maybe montages in the future. I'm kind of working on a montage. I've been collecting clips. I might go ahead and make one somewhere down the line. Not too sure, but that might be coming down in the pipeline. But again, guys, thank you all so much for watching. You guys are the best, and I will see you next time.